Hey friends, it's Miss A behind the camera, and it's time for another Northeast Branch Library Family Night Craft. So this week I'm bringing you something a little different, which I think is fun, and we are going to be making little Sculpey lollipop charms. So it's made out of oven-baked clay. If you've never used Sculpey before, it's super easy. So this bag will have everything you need other than a pair of scissors, a piece of parchment paper, and an oven. So in your bag should be these little plastic ties, which we will be using for lollipop stems. Don't mind my nails. Some Sculpey in bags, and that's it. So in my bag, I have 3 different colors of Sculpey, so will you. So our white is going to be our main color. We're going to have the most white in our Sculpey sort of snail shape that we make for these lollipops. And then you have 2 other colors. So in my bag, I have pink and red. In your bag, you'll also have an instruction sheet like usual. So this will have all of the instructions you need to make this. So if any of my instructions aren't clear, you can just follow along in here. So I'm going to put my instructions to the side, move everything up. And if you read your instructions, it'll say the first thing we want to do is roll our log out of white clay. So it says about 5 inches long and 1/4 inch in diameter. Well, we don't really know how long it's going to be because everyone has a little bit different clay. I do recommend putting something under a surface if you don't want it to get messy. You could just put like a piece of parchment paper down and tape it down, or just make sure you wipe it down afterwards. But basically, we want to make a snake that's 1/4 inch thick. You can use a ruler, or you can just sort of guesstimate by looking like I do. And if you've never rolled a snake out of clay before, all you're doing is you can use 2 hands or 1 hand, but we want to lay our hands flat and we want to sort of gently roll from side to side. Now, the most important thing if you want a consistent log is you want to be adding equal pressure everywhere you go. So if you can see, mine looks pretty even. Now, if you have it skinny in the middle and fat on the edges, it's because you're adding more pressure in the middle than on the edges. So you just want to go and fix those edges and then keep going. So we're just trying to keep a consistent pressure all the way across when we're rolling. And now I want my lollipop to be pretty small. So I'm just going to keep rolling and rolling and rolling until it gets how I like it. And if it's too hard to roll this big snake, you could cut it in half and then keep rolling the smaller half. And mine was a little too long, so I'm cutting it, make it a little bit easier for me. And I'm not doing it, but if you're a perfectionist and you happen to have gloves at home, you can wear gloves and that'll keep you from getting any sort of fingerprints on the clay. But as you can see, I'm not using them, so they're not necessary. It's just a fun little thing you can do if you don't want any fingerprint marks. All right, so I think I gave you all a lot of white clay because as you can see, this is only half my snake and it is way longer than 5 inches. But I'm gonna cut this about in half, but I think this looks like maybe a little less than 1/4 inch, so I probably could have put more. You know, this looks a little thicker, so maybe I'll use this bit down here. I'll just use this. Okay, so I have this snake and I'm going to set it aside for now because we are going to do the same thing with our other 2 colors, but we want to make those snakes even thinner. So I knew that was a lot of clay last time, so I'm actually going to only take about half or 2/3 of this. And if you roll it and you find that it's not rolling very well, you can knead it beforehand, which just basically means sort of squish it between your fingers until it's a good consistency to roll. All right. So I start by rolling into a ball and then I roll it between my fingers so I get this little log shape. And then that's when I take it to the table and do that step we talked about before. All right, so this is about as thin as the other log was, the white. So now I just want to make it even thinner because we want our white to be sort of our primary color. And the other colors sort of swirl through. It'll look very cool. I'm going to cut this in half so it's a little easier. And how thin you make it depends on how big you want your lollipop to be. Okay, mine's not the best consistency. It's a little, you can see some parts are thicker, some parts are thinner. I'm going to do my best to even it out, but if it's not perfect, it's okay. Okay, that looks like enough for me. So I'm going to line that up off screen with my white. And now I'm just going to do the red snake. I'm not going to bother filming it. I'm going to roll this and I'll see you in a second with my red, pink, and white logs all together. Okay friends, so I've finished rolling all 3 logs. As you can see, the white one is the thickest and the 2 on the other sides are thinner. That's the only thing that matters. It's okay if the thicknesses are different than mine. So I've also washed my hands. You can see even after washing them, they're a little stained red. So I like to wash my hands after using my dark color so that way when I'm rolling these together, the other colors don't get red all over them, so we have a nice defined swirl. So that's why I recommend when you're rolling your colors, I recommend going from your lightest color to your darkest color so you can just wash your hands once at the end. So now our next step is we are going to lay our other colors side by side with our white log. So just nice and gently. We want to line them up on one end, and then what we're going to do is see where our shortest end is. So it's right here. We have our red one as the shortest. I'll move this over so it's a little easier to see, but we're going to cut it off there because we want all of our pieces to be the same length. You can use a plastic knife. I'm just using the pair of scissors I have right nearby. So you can see everything's about equal now. So now I very carefully and gently want to roll this into a log. So I like to try to make sure that the red and pink aren't really touching because I think it gives it a more defined swirl. If you find they're migrating towards each other when you go to roll, just do what I'm doing right now and sort of gently pinch them towards each other. Sometimes they're just not going to cooperate as you're seeing now, but I'm going to try to get them together and then I'm going to roll this just so it becomes a snake. So you might have to just wiggle a little bit first instead of just flat out rolling. That's okay, we're gonna get there. Okay, they're not migrating as badly as before, so I feel okay. So we're just rolling once more into a snake. And you wanna make sure you're not mixing the colors together. We're just rolling so they become one snake. As soon as it's round, you probably want to stop rolling once it's round and about the size you want, because we want to have a nice defined swirl like I said before. I want mine maybe a little bit thinner. I'm using this as my stick for my lollipop, so I like to look at it and see, okay, how thick could it be without making this look like I've just got a tiny little plastic thing sticking out. So I want mine a little bit thinner. This end's actually perfect, so I'll just take that extra off. So I'm rolling this a little bit more. And this actually just came off naturally. So what I'm going to do is I'll use this to show you what I want to do here. So I should probably zoom in so you could see a little better. So let me zoom in. Okay, so basically I'm going to hold with one end and then twist, and you can see this swirl just magically appears. It'll look very pretty. And that's exactly what we want. If you see a part that's not a swirl that you missed, just go back, swirl it. And so once we have a lovely swirl, we are going to roll it up like a little snail. So you can either cut it beforehand or roll and see it's the size you want and then cut. I'm going to be doing the latter. So we're just very carefully rolling it up little by little. Let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, that's as far as it goes. And you can see it looks like a tiny little lollipop. Again, I'm going to use my stick as sort of a measure. I think that's just about right. So I'm going to pinch that off. And there's my lollipop shape. And it looks super cute. All right, so you can make a lot of these lollipop shapes with the amount of clay I got you. So make as many as you want. Then I'm going to take my stick, this clothing zip tie tag type thing. See if I can get it, yeah, in focus. And we're going to cut it to the length we want. I think it looks good about there. Always trim it more. And then, so it is plastic, but it's going to be in such a low temperature for such a short time in your oven, it shouldn't melt. Actually, I'm gonna cut this just a little bit shorter. And what you're going to do is very carefully put this into your Sculpey. And you don't need to stick it through the whole thing. You just want it to be in enough that it's not going to come out. You want it to be secure. All right, so you can see my lollipop looks super cute. And that's basically it. So we only have one step left, and that is you're going to make all of the lollipops you want to bake. Then you will put them on a piece of parchment paper and put them in the oven at 275 degrees. Make sure you preheat it before you put them in. 275 degrees for 15 minutes. So after about 15 minutes, they will be nice and dry and hard at the top, and you can do whatever you want with them. You could get some earring backs and add them. You could just put them around to be cute. You could make a log of clay and stick them all into it so you could have like a little line of cute lollipops. Whatever you want to do. So I hope you had fun with this craft, and you'll join me again next Wednesday for a St. Patrick's Day themed family night craft. Bye friends from Miss A behind the camera.